Hi, I'm Sean. I've always been curious about the answers to life's big questions. I thought it would be cool to seek some of those answers through conversations with others on a similar path. My intention with these conversations is to inspire you to think bigger, to challenge what you believe to be possible. I'd like to invite you to think outside the lines. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Think Outside the Lines podcast, where we feature thought-provoking and inspiring conversations with guests who are doing their part to make the world a better place. Now, before we get to the interview today, wherever you are, I want you to take a moment and think of 3 things that you're grateful for right now. What are 3 things in your life at this very moment that you can appreciate? I'll give you just a moment to reflect. All right. My guest today is a former dentist turned freedom entrepreneur who helps people escape the mundane and fearlessly explore life through the power of passion and purpose. He's written an amazing book titled UNBOX YOURSELf, in which he helps the reader to discover their passions and purpose in life. This is the sort of conversation that continues to motivate me to do this show, and I believe you will feel immensely better after listening. It's time to think outside the lines with Dr. Chris. I want to start off with a quote from Oscar Wilde that's at the beginning of your book, Unbox Yourself. You say that to live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. I found that after diving into your book that this quote really kind of sums everything up perfectly. Why does that quote resonate with you so much? And how can we practice more living in our lives as opposed to just existing?
Right. To live is rare. That has resonated in my life so much because it seems like we have so many things we try to put onto each other, so many expectations in life that really have nothing to do with enjoying the existence of being a human being. And it goes from working from 9 to 5, it goes from trying to get a better job to the bigger car, to all these expectations we have based on society. And it really doesn't have anything to do with happiness or purpose or passion. And we go through this almost pre-planned, packaged life where you're born, you have a couple years to be a kid and enjoy, life, do whatever you want, and then suddenly it starts. You got to go to school, you got to go get a job, you have to get a better job, you have to save for retirement, because retirement is where you can finally start doing the things you enjoy again. And then when retirement comes, you have a couple years, you go see the doctor all the time, and then you pass away, and there was your structured life, and everybody seems to feel that is the guide. It's like, hey, this is how you live.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at this thinking, that doesn't make any sense, So to actually stop doing that, stepping outside that pre-programmed life plan and figuring out what you really want to do is living, right? Figuring out what inside you burns a hole in your soul, something that you just want to do. You want to go travel, you want to, do art, whatever it is that you want to do shouldn't be postponed until you can afford it, or until you have time, or until you retire, because life is about that spark, that little something inside you that makes you itch, you don't postpone that. So living, or actually pursuing that spark inside you, that passion, is often it often doesn't happen. It's just postponed, or it's called dreaming. And I don't like dreaming. I like doing.
I love it. Now, you help people escape the mundane and fearlessly explore life through the power of passion and purpose. And I typically begin by asking all of my guests to define purpose, because I think that that's a really important word. And I ask them what they believe theirs to be. But I kind of want to rephrase that a bit for you. And I want to ask you to define both passion and purpose and how you believe these 2 things converge.
Right. So I'm 45 now, and it took me literally 40 years to even think about what this means and try to figure out what purpose and passion means in my life. And I think it's different for everybody. But for me, the purpose, after everything I've read and watched and listened to, podcasts like yours, books I've read, to me, the purpose is literally to do exactly what you're doing at this moment.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, that took a huge load off of my back. I'm thinking, yeah, I gotta find my purpose. I gotta find my purpose. What
Like
am I
it's some
supposed to be
external
doing?
thing, huh?
Yeah, it's like you're
Yeah.
seeking something and it's so hard. You don't want to mess it up, right? You don't want to do the wrong thing and
Yeah.
miss your purpose. So the best answer I have for purpose is whatever you've done in the past has set you up to do what you're doing right now, and learn from it. And the next thing you do is going to be completely different based on how you react to the current situation. Kind of like the Edgar Tolle thing, living the now, right? You're
Yeah.
doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you don't like it, you have all the power to change it, but just live it, see the positive, see the good in your current purpose, and build the next purpose, whatever it is. So that's purpose for me. Passion is just as complicated because we do the same thing. We overanalyze, right? We don't want to make a mistake. I think we're so afraid, fear in general, we're so afraid to make a mistake, especially with our life, that we don't take any risk. So your passion may be art and you may be a dentist, but you have the nice job, you're making a lot of money. So while your passion may be to draw, you can't imagine drawing because you need to make a living. You need to send your kids to college so they can start their life plan, right? And you can't do that on the salary of an artist or a starving artist. So you're a dentist and you make all this money doing something you don't necessarily love. So that's not passion. Passion is actually listening to your inner core, listening to what your soul tells you you want to do. And whatever that is, that's what you should be doing. So for me, I went through a lot of retrospective searching to figure out what my passion was because I felt it was something I had to study. And at the end, it comes down to passion simply is doing what I really enjoyed doing as a kid and I kind of forgot to do because I started the life plan. So passion is doing exactly what makes you feel good, your bliss, your gift, your the things that you innately are good at. And one thing I talk to people about in the book is you want to figure out what your passion is. Talk to your friends. What do you talk about when you're not talking about your job or when you're not talking about basic, things in life? What do you light up about when you speak? What do you do when you have extra time? What can't you wait to do in the morning when you wake up? And it can be anything. And that's your passion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for me personally, at least, I think my passion has always been a little bit easier to define and to actually live than my purpose, just because purpose has always seemed like this very esoteric concept of like, I have this thing I have to achieve before I leave the planet. Whereas passion seems more like day to day, like I can actually, these are achievable things. I know what makes me passionate. I know what lights me up. And so I'm able to live that more frequently. But I do think that, to your point, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily know how to live that, right? Like they might know in the back of their mind, but they're not quite sure how to live it.
And there's not one. You don't have to
Totally.
find that one perfect thing. It can change too.
Yeah.
You're allowed to make changes. You're allowed to change your mind.
Absolutely. Now, you've alluded a little bit to your career in dentistry, which has been pretty illustrious. Not just with your own practice, but also you said on the lecture circuit. What motivated you to explore this new and very different phase of your life with personal development?
Right. So that's interesting. I actually had a patient come into my practice and recommend a book. And it was actually Brian Weiss's Many Masters, Many Lives. And I was at that point in my life where I felt something was missing and I had no idea what it was. But 20 years of dentistry, theoretically I should be on top of the game. I should love what I'm doing, but I felt something was missing and it was becoming a routine and I felt trapped. And like, what on earth am I here to do? Maybe it's midlife crisis. I call it a midlife awakening, but you get to the point where something had to change. And she brought this book in because there's no coincidences. I read the book and it lit this fire inside me. And I said, this is something that really interests me. And so after 20 years of doing dentistry, I kind of realized that I started this path based on the life plan that essentially my family had. And I just wanted to step into the same conveniences. the travel, the money, the house, the car. We always had a very good life, and it seemed simple and it seemed easy, and I really didn't put a lot of thought into it. So I went through the path. By the time I got to be 42 or so, I was on top of the path. And as the book kind of says, you realize that the top of the mountain is a very lonely place and not necessarily the destination you're looking for. So this book opened my eyes up and got me on this whole spirituality journey of finding purpose and passion, defining the reason, the reason for you to be. And it started my mind to unwind. And yeah, it made a huge difference in my life. So as of this week, actually, I just sold my dental practice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Unboxing, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And moved to Portland, Oregon to essentially do what I feel my passion is. And as we know, purpose is doing exactly what you're doing. So I made this, I'm living my book because it's more of a journal than a how-to manual. And I don't want to tell people how to do anything, but I can tell you how I'm doing something. And if it works or not, we'll find out.
That's so awesome. What made you choose Portland?
I lived in Germany 13 years. I lived in California, I think 18. And then we lived in Kentucky 14 years. And after all that, I sat down and I said, you know what, you got to figure out where you want to be based on what's right for you. So I actually did a lot of surveys. I did a lot of studies. I looked at everything from health, the CDC health index, the cancer rates, the happiness factor. There's actually a whole bunch of studies on happiness. I looked at weather patterns and water quality and people, diversity. And at the end, I had narrowed it down to a couple of places. And my brother moved to Portland 8 years ago, and my mother moved 3 years ago. And we then decided that Portland was going to be a mix of all the things we liked, but all the places we have lived, and having family there was also key.
Yeah.
And we just got here, and so far it's been all that and then some.
I love it. I asked just because I feel like there's a research, I don't know, I know so many people that are considering or have moved to Portland, and there must be something particularly magical about the city.
It's a good mix of everything.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
You just got the diversity. People are accepting, they're open, there's growth, there's the real estate market is growing because people want to move there. You have this amazing environment. You can be in the mountains in 2 hours. You can be in the beach in 2 hours. You can be in a desert in 2 hours. You have some of the nature's most amazing waterfalls and rivers. Literally, it's an outdoors paradise. And I'm looking to explore my world, my planet, a lot more. And Portland offers that. So
yeah, for sure.
I
actually, that's part of the reason I wanted to move to LA personally, just because I grew up, in Orange County too. And if you've never been to Orange County, it can be very sheltered. And I intentionally came to Los Angeles because I wanted to experience more of the diversity and some of the things that you speak of. Cost of living is a different story, but
diversity for sure.
Yeah. You tell a story about sitting at a wedding table with prominent dentists earlier in your career and telling yourself that you didn't want to end up like them, even though they were incredibly successful and seemed to have everything that most people would want. But you seem to hone in on this as the conversation turned toward missed passions and a general feeling of being stuck. I highlight this because I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Can you talk a bit about the stable life plan versus the personal, more purpose-driven life plan?
Plan A versus plan B, right?
Yeah.
So when you get out of dental school, or I'm going to say any type of education, maybe you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, you're going to have a goal. You're going to want to become, at that point, the best in your field. And when I got out of dental school, I had the privilege of going to a wedding at which I was sitting at a table with the who's who of my profession. All the dentists that are the big speakers, the ones that write out the articles, the cosmetic dentists that are, the gods of dentistry, essentially for dentists. And the wine started to flow, and we had a great evening. After an hour, 2 or 3, they started opening up to me on how they felt. And these guys were at the end of their career, and they were miserable, divorced. They had heart attacks. They had missed passions. They had hobbies they wanted to explore that they can't. They had major medical problems. In short, they were anything but happy. And if happiness is the core goal of everything we do, happiness for ourselves, in a selfish way, then why would I pursue the path that all these people have taken that leads to what seemed like a terribly unhappy life? And it opened my eyes up very early on in my career, and it stuck and it brewed in my brain for many years before I was able to actually understand exactly what that meant. But these people who had achieved what I theoretically was shooting for had failed themselves in life. Why would I go down that path? And it really confused me at that point. So yeah, nowadays I look at people and I don't judge them by their success in anything they do. I just look to see how happy are you with what you're doing in life, and that's really the key.
Yeah, I mean that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to grasp, just because I think, to your point, there's a lot of people that are very early in life, in grade school, high school, even, like, set on this trajectory of expectation. So I think that one of the things you say is that life is a game, and you are not only the main character but also the director, and that you're meant for greatness, and anything short of living a life true of your authentic self is a waste of time. Now, I'm really aligned with this concept, but I'm curious to know how. Right? Because these are great ideas, but how do we reconcile this with the day-to-day obstacles in life that we sometimes have to first navigate before we can get to a place where we buy into this concept?
Right. So the key is, on a quick side note, I actually wrote this book for my kids because they don't listen to me as much as I would like to. But when they do get to the point where they're like, hey, Dad wrote this book about unboxing yourself and happiness and passion and purpose, I kind of feel like maybe that's interesting now. So the book is kind of written for them and is a journal. So it's kind of funny. I never had told anybody that before, but it's really something for them to see. It's like their plan. When they don't want to listen to Dad, they can read it. But when it comes to being your authentic self and living a path true to yourself, we all hear these motivational tapes, these videos or YouTube short bits, these goalcast videos, right? Where it's all motivational. Do this, you should be doing that. And it sounds really great, but then how do you actually do it is an entirely different story. And that's the hardest part, right? We all want to be happy. We all want to be successful. We all want to be pursuing our passion and purpose. But why aren't we? Why are so few people actually doing that? Because it's hard. It's hard to quit your job and start something that you don't know if it's even going to make any money. It's hard to have somebody, it's hard to have other people, your friends, your family, try to tell you what you should be doing, and you're dropping all those ideals. You're a doctor, you went through medical school or dental school, whatever it may be, for a long time, and you decide to drop all that and become a freelance artist. It's going to result in criticism. It's going to result in fear. It's going to result in failure. It's going to result in all these things that are scary. So how do you actually do it? Well, the book, Unbox Yourself, kind of goes through how I did it. Is it the best way? I don't know. It's the only way I know it. So I started pursuing the things that I enjoy as hobbies, and then I turned the hobby into a small income potential. Froggles. I invented some swim goggles for kids. And then as that company grew and I started to see that I really have a passion for that, I started shifting more towards that. And at some point you cut the cord, right? So I sell the dental practice and I focus 100% on inventing products, or whatever your passion may be. For me, it is helping people and inventing products. So you do it slowly, and then you transition over, and then you just jump ship. You burn the boat. There's so many analogies to that.
So you talked about how you kind of started a business to segue out of dentistry. Were there particular steps that you took in the beginning because I think that's something that a lot of people might want to do, but how did you get to a place where you said, like, this is the first action I'm going to take, and what was that action?
So everything I've learned about making changes has to do with small changes. If you have this big goal and you want to do it all at once, it's going to be too scary and you're going to not end up doing it. So what I started out with is I realized I have a passion or a gift or something for creating solutions, for problem solving. And that involved creating products for me. So I invented a product, which was a swim goggle. And then after getting the patent, I started selling a few. So I just started really small. Literally, I did it at night. I did everything online. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't necessarily there to make any money yet. It was just baby steps towards doing something every single day that I loved. So during the day, I was a dentist. And then at night, I would cut neoprene apart and I would sew it together into a certain pattern to make these swim goggles, these straps for the swim goggles that would actually be comfortable. I did that for months until I found a design that really worked. And then I made some samples for my kids and they went to swim practice with them and it worked. But none of this had to do with money. None of this had to do with a business yet. It's just pursuing something I really enjoy doing. Because the reality is that you can create a business, you can create an income around anything these days. You can play video games on Twitch to make money, So don't have people tell you can't make money doing something. Of course you can. You can create an income. You can create a business around everything. So I did that for a little bit of time. And then I had a pattern made in China. And then that was also not very difficult. And then I ordered a couple hundred units and I sold them on Amazon. And that was really the turning point. I realized that, you know what? I can make money doing this. So then we started to grow that. And you fast forward 4 years later. And we were one of the top selling swim goggles on Amazon. I'm still, until this week, I was still a dentist full time. I had this business running out of the back of my dental office on a desk with one employee.
That's amazing.
And it was totally neglected business-wise because I had the income-producing career and I had this happiness-producing a business that was doing something that I enjoy. And now I'm finally at the point where I can flip the coin, right? I can focus 100% on this business because it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's helping people in one way or another, which is how all businesses work. And it's helping so many people that it's growing. And I can stop doing one business and focus on my passion business.
What I actually love, something you alluded to a moment ago, is that the business that you started aside from dentistry was something that you actually enjoyed and had a passion about. Because I think I've actually seen people do this where they leave one career to start a business thinking it's going to solve all their problems, and they end up hating that just as much, if not more, than what they were doing previously. So I think that's a really good point to make.
You're right. Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things that I really like about your perspective is that you kind of admit that you're not trying to be a guru. In the book, you actually say that you're just a soul that's sharing their path and experience as they're experiencing it themselves. And I love this because I feel like it's very much in alignment with my intentions. Like, with this show, for example, I'm not trying to legislate how anyone should live their life. I feel like a part of my mission is really to just introduce people to these concepts, and they might not normally be exposed to them, and they might not take away something from it. They might take away something from it. Why, from your perspective, do we even get into a place in our lives where we begin to feel stuck or trapped? And how would you advise somebody could start to break free from that?
I'm not a big guru guy because I feel the ego is a big component of our lives, and we have to work on being humble all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're the guru, you've traded one evil for another, right? We're here just to help each other and share everything we learn and take from it what people like, right? So for like the book Unbox Yourself, I give more books away than I ever will sell. And as many as we do sell, it's not a money-making concept. It's purely there to help people make their own decisions on their lives. And I enjoy that more than anything. So that's really important for me, is that, the guru component. When I hear somebody proclaiming themselves a guru, I kind of get turned off, and I try to move in a different direction.
Yeah, me too.
So when you look at your childhood, as you said, a child tends to do exactly what they want to do all the time. They take risks. they do just what they like. If they don't like something, they'll tell you, hey, I hate broccoli. I don't want to eat the broccoli. I love ice cream. I would like some more ice cream. They really live true to their inner core. And then as we hit a certain age, and I believe it's the teen years, and it has a lot to do with education, you're put into this box, or you've been given this rule book of how life works. Hey, I know until now you thought that you can be anything you wanted to be. You thought that this is how the world works. But, let's become real. You can't be the president. You can't walk on the moon. You can't do this. You're going to get more limitations than you're going to get unlimited results. And that's so sad, because kids are dreamers. And then we put them in this box, we educate them, and everything in society pretty much these days is giving us a roadmap. The roadmap is always the same. You work hard from 9 to 5 for a good job. You invest some of the money with a 401k or something like that. Then you get to retire at, 72, something like that. And then you can actually do what you like. So all that starts with, unfortunately, a lot of the education we have in this world. And the education is coming from both the parents, the friends, and the schools. And it's all limiting. We're proposed that, a dentist is a great job. You make a lot of money, you can make your own hours, and then you can retire at some point in time in your life, and then you can travel and see the world. So all that starts probably right after between 10 and 13. I think we get a lot of limitations put on us. And then we start to absorb those things. And we start building our own box. We start building this what I would call a mirrored box, where we try to reflect what people want to see. Because by nature, we want to please people, all of us, I think. And if somebody says, you're good at basketball, you should play basketball. And you hate basketball, but you're tall and you feel like, they think I should play basketball. I'm going to go play basketball. And then you have created this need to please somebody else rather than your inner core. And we do that over and over and over. And by the time we're 40, we have created this image of what everybody thinks we are, but it may be completely different than who we really are inside. And that's when we have to dig deep inside, dig out that person, unbox that little who you really are, and start living a life true to your authentic self, meaning the things that you love, your true passions. And it has nothing to do with what other people think or say about you.
I love that. Can you talk a bit about identifying your box? What does it mean, and maybe what are some steps that we could take to get started?
Right. So that's always the first step, right? If you don't know where you are, how do you have any idea how to go anywhere, right? If you want to get from point A to point B, you need to know point A, not just point B. And to figure out who you really are is the introspective part of finding out what you should do in this world. The way I did it, and there's probably many ways to do this, but the way I did it is I looked back at my childhood, and then I started to see, what did I do when I had free time? What do I do when I have free time? And when I think about something, what gives me that chill that runs down the back of your spine? If I could just wake up and do something today and it had nothing to do with money, what would that be? And I wrote all those things down, and it was a long list. It can be, inventing like it was for me, or it could be, I love to get up in the morning and I love to go take a walk, or I love to go exercise. Just start a list of all the things that make you feel alive, all the things that make you smile. And when you have a list of 20, 30, 40 items, look for parallels, look for things that can be bundled together into a similar category, and then keep on distilling down those passions, those things that make you happy, and you're going to find a common thread. And that common thread is a really good starting point to figure out, what do you really stand for and what should you really pursue? And then you try a few things in that category. And if you love it, great. If not, then you start over and you do it again. But that's how you introspectively figure out what you really like to do. Do not, under any circumstances, do not take advice from people during this process. You can ask them what they think you stand for, but it really has to be a self-designed exercise from you, from the inside out.
Yeah, I know that external influences play a huge factor in our lives. What are some tips for not just becoming more aware of these influences, but even moving beyond them?
Well, that's the hardest part, right? Pleasing people. We all like to please people, and it's really uncomfortable if we do something and somebody says, that's really stupid, or you're an idiot, or God, what the hell are you thinking? And all those things are criticisms of our feelings, right? If you're doing something you really enjoy, and somebody says, "Well, you really suck at running," and you really like running, you can either take that as a criticism and a do not run kind of command, or you can take it as a challenge and say, you know what, I love running. I may suck at it right now, but this is what I like to do. I'm going to practice. Everything requires practice. So building a shell, or well, there's two ways to look at it. Building a shell that's like a mirror, where everything that you imagine, all criticisms bounce off of you because they don't affect you, is one way. The way I have done it is, I just imagine myself being transparent. And if somebody says something that bothers me, I literally take a deep breath and I let it just pass right through me. And I try to replace that criticism or that negative thought with something positive. And it gets down to the physiology of how the brain works, because we do have this human body that we have to work with. And it can only do one thing at a time. It can either be positive or negative. It can go up or it can down. There's no gray zone, right? So if somebody says something negative to you, your response can be positive or it can be negative. But that's your choice. You can't choose how you're being criticized, but you can choose the response. And if you choose a positive response, you're building positive actions in your brain. And before you know it, you're going to be what I consider myself, a hopeless optimist. I see the positive in everything. Why? Because I choose to do so. Is it always positive? Heck no. Sometimes it's just, terrible. But if you look at it saying, well, that's a really good learning lesson, you can turn every situation in a positive for you. And that's how you start avoiding the criticism. That's how you start to unbox yourself and you build a very strong, confident you.
I love that. I know that the question, why was I born, has had a really big impact on your life. Can you explain maybe why we should be asking ourselves this important question, and how we might begin to discover the answers?
So why was I born is a really tough question. For me at first, I had no idea. I've always been very hard on myself. I've always been looking for the growth, the next best, the next big thing, because I never felt like I was doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or I never felt like I was successful enough. And that's a really stupid and terrible way to live. And that has, thank God, changed a little bit now. But why was I born? I used to try to analyze that question. It's sort of like, what's your purpose? What's your passion? And it can be really, really difficult, or as it turns out to be, it can be really, really easy. And I choose to look at it as being really, really easy, because I realize that I can't answer all the questions that I would like to answer all the time. So when I look at my personal situation, why was I born? I was certainly not born to drill on teeth. I certainly wasn't born to do anything specific. I feel that I was born to use my passion, which is directly tied to my gifts. I think we all have passions, we all have gifts, and they're closely related, because there's a bigger plan to all this. You're not going to be born with a gift that you hate to do. I don't think so, at least. So when you look at the reason why you were born, it is to do what you love to do, but you also tie that to helping other people. I feel you have to contribute to humanity. I think we're all here to further humanity, further the greater consciousness, the universal consciousness. So you take your purpose, which is to do exactly what you're doing. You take your passion, which is whatever you enjoy doing, and that's going to be directly related to your gift, which is what you've been given to contribute back to the greater consciousness, to humanity. And that's why you were born, to do just that.
I love that a lot. I feel like a lot of what you're work is doing is to challenge the myth that we have to pick a career for the rest of our lives. I wonder if this sort of conditioning is what paralyzes so many people.
We get paralyzed with overthinking everything. Trying to find an answer to every question is impossible. Often it's smarter, and the older I get, the more people I meet who I consider wise, the more they tend to answer questions with questions.
Definitely.
But yeah, and that you notice that too, right? It's like they don't give you straightforward answers because there isn't just one answer.
Yeah.
There isn't just one right way. And the less you try to define everything in life, and the more open you are to multiple solutions or multiple possibilities, the easier life is going to get for you, and I believe the more correct you will end up being.
Yeah, it's actually funny. In the book, you talk about having read kind of every self-help book in existence and in fear of not having all of the information necessary. But that at some point we need to begin to take action because we'll never have all the information that we need, right? And I think that's such, especially like in this space of personal development, I think that there's almost a paralysis of like information. Like we're seeking that one more piece of information that's going to finally help us when it probably isn't there. Like you just need to start living.
Yeah, no, we make it so complicated, and that's been me, right? I literally own a lot of books of which I've read half.
Yep. Same.
And it's like, why don't I finish the book? Because I figured I got the gist out of it, and then I just want to get the next best idea. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better solution, and that's tiresome.
Yeah.
You never find an answer. You end up killing yourself trying to find that secret sauce, And you're so right, and that's why people like Eckhart Tolle totally make sense. He sits there, he's so passive, he's so calm. He's like, dude, live in the now. Whatever's happening right now is all that matters. And I think that's really the key. There's no answer. It's just doing it now.
Sort of tangential question, but like, how do you, as a dentist, because I think like going to the dentist is like a huge fear for most people, right? Mm-hmm. How do you reconcile living in the now with being at the dentist? Because I feel like that's a moment you're like trying more than anything to get out of.
Right. So the way I've seen life in general is everything happens for a reason, and there's no coincidences. So when you come to my dental practice, doing the actual dentistry is the smallest part of the visit. We meet as human beings, as souls, for a purpose. And that purpose is not just to fix your tooth or put a filling in it or whatever it is you're there for. It is to exchange ideas, to share knowledge, to encourage each other, and to give each other a nugget of something. I tend to give my patients nuggets of optimism, nuggets of hope, because dentists see more of the population on a regular basis than pretty much any other profession, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We see people every 3, 4, 6 months, and so we have the opportunity to give people something positive, even if it's just a little thing, and help them in that way. So when people come see me and they try to be negative, like I hate coming to the dentist. I'm like, yeah, I hate going to the dentist too. We all hate going to the dentist, but I then turn that around really quickly, and I ask them about their day, I ask them about their life, whatever it may be, and we'll find something positive. And when they leave happy, they leave smiling, they leave optimistic. They're on to the next thing based on how I was able to lift them up a little bit emotionally. So of course, you can read books like what is it? One Man's Quest for Humanity. I forget the book's name. Where you're in a concentration camp, and if you can be optimistic going through your life in a concentration camp, then you can be optimistic anywhere, even at the dentist.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you for confirming that even dentists hate going to the dentist.
Oh, we do.
Talk to me about Fred.
Fred, yeah. So after many years of things going wrong here and there in dentistry, like if a tooth was hard to pull out of the mouth or it broke off and I had to surgically cut it out, or a crown that we were cementing, a cap that we were putting on a tooth wasn't fitting right, somehow I started to see these situations as Freds. So it was almost like a key word first for my staff. And I would call a tooth a Fred if it was just a big pain in the ass. This is, let's go pull Fred, or let's go send Fred back to the lab because he didn't fit right. So Fred to me is that thing in your life that's making your life hard. When something is going wrong, it's Fred in my life. So I hope no offense towards the name Fred. If you're named Fred, you can pick a different name. You don't have to name yourself.
We're not trying to offend any Freds listening.
Yeah, don't be offended by Fred. But there's a lot of Freds in my life. And it took something that really frustrated me, and it almost made it positive, right? It made it funny. And whenever we have a difficult situation in the dental chair, and my patients have no idea, but my staff hears me call it, Fred, they start laughing, or it's pretty funny. And we would turn this nasty, terrible, sweaty palm situation into something that's lighter and funnier, and it always resolves itself anyway. So Fred to me is anything that screws with your life. And if you identify it and you take the power away from it by actually making it funny or laughing at it, that turns the situation to an optimistic thing again, positively.
What does it mean to raise our vibration, and how is that applicable in your work?
So I'm a huge, as I matured in my growth in the spirituality realm, I am now a huge fan of how vibrations are everything. And you can watch all your documentaries on quantum physics and realize that we all are frequencies and we vibrate at different levels. Everything has a vibration. And for me now, you need to make a change in your life, you need to vibrate with that change, and everything vibrates. So I tell my kids, if you are hanging out with people that are negative, that are pessimistic, or that are just in the wrong kind of crowd, that's a vibration. That's a certain type of level of vibration. And you, as a soul, are going to assimilate without even choosing to do so to that same frequency, to that same vibration. It's just how life works. And you're going to rise or fall to the level of the vibration that you're surrounded by. So if you're around a lot of negative people, you're going to be drawn to follow that specific vibration of negativity. And that goes with everything in life. That goes with the way you think. That goes with your exercise levels, your diet levels, whatever you do in life, there's a vibration to it, even thought and even emotions. So I tell people that your pack or the people you hang out with are going to define your level of success. And if you're the most successful or the happiest person in your group of friends, you're going to have a hard time excelling beyond that, because you're going to be pulled down to their vibration level. It's just the law of having more negativity than positivity around you. So if you take yourself and you surround yourself by the vibration of happiness or the vibration of optimism, people who are optimistic, people who are always laughing, who always turn a situation into a good thing, even if it looks like it's bad, right? You're going to be raised up to their level of vibration. So surrounding yourself by the vibration that you're seeking is so important. You want to be successful. And a lot of people are posting all these videos on how to make all this money and, online businesses, do your own thing. If you're only looking to make money, then you surround yourself with people who are making a lot of money, and you'll be given opportunities due to the level of vibration of that certain specific thing of making money. You'll probably end up making more money. Has a lot to do with happiness? Probably not. But find the thing that you want most in life and surround yourself by it, and you're going to assimilate to it. Even with it's all subconscious, you don't even know what's happening. A good analogy, really quick, is that if you take a black drop of ink and you drop it into a bottle of water, it quickly dissolves, and you do not see it very quickly because the black ink dissolves and it matches. It separates out to fill this huge space. It's going to assimilate to what's around it, like osmosis as well. It works with everything in life. So I try to surround myself by optimistic people. I surround myself by people who are successful. I try to surround myself by people who are pursuing their passion. And it doesn't mean you have to be physically around them. There's really no distance in quantum physics. So if I'm talking to you, you being an optimistic person, you being a person who's raising the vibration of people around you in many different ways. By me talking to you right now, Sean, I'm actually raising my vibrational energy to get closer to whatever your vibrational energy is, and that's good for both of us.
Yeah, that's actually a big reason I do this show. I think it's just to keep that routine in my life of talking to people like you and having conversations like this that elevate that. So I think that was I think that was a really great explanation of that answer to that question. So thank you. You have a list of things that happy and positive people do automatically. Can you walk us through some of these?
Oh yeah, it's actually pretty simple, and the list is always changing. But it's so simple that if you write it down, it even looks silly. But if you're a happy or if an optimistic person, you can change from being a negative person to an optimistic person just by following a few little things. So number one, when I have a negative thought, and this is probably the most important part, when I have a negative thought come into my head, I have a choice, right? I can pursue that negative thought, or I can flip it and I can create a positive thought. So is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? The old traditional way of looking at, the pessimism versus the optimism situation. It is so simple, but it is so important. The glass always is half full for you. Every single time. Everything that happens to you in life is half full, because you're setting yourself up in situations due to your past actions to give you the opportunity to make the half full decision. You're sitting in traffic and somebody cuts you off. Are you going to be frustrated? Are you going to choose the negative response, or are you going to choose the positive response? And the positive response would be something as simple as, that poor person probably has something going on in their life that is dramatically more important currently than what's going on in my life. Maybe their child's in a hospital. Maybe their wife had a stroke, or there's something in their life that is probably going on that's requiring this person to get someplace really quickly. You have a choice to think that that's the scenario, or you can have a choice to think, well, he's just an asshole and he's cutting me off. God, I hate that. I hate people like that. I'm just going to tailgate him. I'm going to flip him off. You have two pathways you can go. Which one's going to work out better for you? The positive one, right? And what I've noticed is we actually are put into situations, or we are challenged in situations where this stuff happens. As soon as you start to respond in a more soulful, positive, optimistic way, the less these situations happen. I have no idea why this is, but I find, like, if you complain about hitting all these red lights, you're going to hit more red lights. Why? Because I think you're subconsciously, through the soul, through the consciousness, challenging yourself to have a better outcome thought-wise of the situation. So if you hit red lights, and you're always complaining about it, you're going to hit a lot of red lights because you're not learning a lesson. But if you flip that around and you start looking at it in a positive way, before you know it, you're not going to hit red lights anymore. It's always going to be green. I mean, literally, nearly always, because that works for me in many ways in life.
Yeah, I actually really like that, because I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. Like, I'm someone that is very much aligned with everything that you're saying, and I have moments where I'm stuck in traffic and I'm angry, and I don't always, pass the test of trying to stay optimistic. But I always come back and look at it as like, you know what? There will be another opportunity for me to try that again. And the next time you're in it, you can choose a different outcome. You can choose a different thought, right? And so I think that there's something really powerful in just understanding that you're not going to get it right every time. But as long as you're open to the idea of getting it right, things will change and they'll work out in your favor.
You can be challenged until you get it right. Yeah,
absolutely.
There's no right or wrong, right? Because you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing at that moment in time, and how you react is just going to shape how your future turns out the next moment.
What does have you hopeful about the world today?
Oh, the world is awesome right now. Just the fact that people like you are doing the shows like you're doing, is awesome. I mean, an immense amount of change from the past. Spirituality or acceptance is growing at incredible rates. The internet, while it has a lot of negative things, has brought so many people together. So suddenly, your opinion actually can matter more than you ever thought. You can influence so many people in a positive way that you could have never done in the past. So ideas are spreading. You don't have to watch the news. You probably shouldn't anyway, but you don't have to watch the news to get somebody's opinion about what's going on, because you can just go online and share with your community, and you're going to get everybody's, the layperson's feedback. So everybody matters in this world. And they're able to spread that message so much better. And due to that, we're noticing that cliques are starting to fall apart. You're not Democratic, or you're not Republican anymore. You're not Catholic, or you're not Christian anymore. All these large organizations that in my opinion tend to control people are starting to fall, because opinions by every single person are beginning to matter more. So the world is changing in a very positive way, and the greater consciousness of which we are all part of is connecting us in ways that we can share things like our conversation today, and it's going to help that many more people who are going to help that many more people, and it's going to bring humanity up to a better level, and it's going to save our planet. It's going to do all these wonderful positive things.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to say thank you so much for this conversation, because this is why I do this show. I mean, I talk to all kinds of people from different backgrounds, but this conversation today is literally like what my mission and what my intention is with this show. And so I'm incredibly grateful. I also want to thank you for your book and just for the work that you're out there doing, just because I think that there's a ton of information even in the book that we didn't get to today. So I encourage anyone listening to dive in further. Can you tell us how we can connect with you?
Yes. First of all, thanks, Sean. You're exactly right. Your show is awesome. And because of shows like yours, I'm becoming the person that I want to be. And it's just really encouraging to see that you're doing this. And so Unbox Yourself, it's only available on Amazon, and you can get a Kindle version, or you can actually order a hardcover version. And I do occasional book signings now in Portland, where I'm just going to give the books away. I'm just looking to spread the message. We don't, it's not a moneymaker. It's here just to help as many people as possible. And you can connect with me on Instagram at Dr. Chris Hahn, or you can connect with me on my website at drchris.hahn.com or freedomdoc.com. I'm actually in the process of just narrowing everything down to one singular place, because I'm simplifying my life. That's one of the reasons I moved to Portland. And just creating one simple identity is probably going to end up being just drchrishahn.com. And so you can email me there. You can connect with me on Instagram, and all the links will be listed on that site then. And I answer every single post personally. And if you have any questions or problems or you need help, I just help people. I don't really charge at this point. I don't see myself doing that in the foreseeable future either. I've never charged for dental advice for 20 years, and I've written that blog forever. And it's been one of my passions, is to just help answer questions for people. If it's spirituality, if it's dentistry, I'm just here to help, do whatever I can. So connect with me there, and hopefully I can help you in any way possible.
All right, I want to thank Dr. Chris for joining me today. And of course, I'd like to thank you for listening. Now, if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It's the best way to help new listeners discover the show. And please share this episode with anyone you think could benefit from hearing it. Now, you can find the links for everything we talk about in the show notes, which can be found over at thinkoutsidelines.com. And feel free to drop me a line with any questions or feedback on the show. You can always send an email to hello@thinkoutsidelines.com. Until next time, go out there and pursue your passion today, because the best way to predict the future is to create it. For more information, please visit thinkoutsidelines.com.